The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with an eerie, almost electric tension as General Kavarthok of the Zilker Dominion stepped forward. His towering frame cast a long shadow under the dim, golden light that gleamed from the walls. The alien general's scales shimmered like polished obsidian, his voice a deep growl that reverberated across the vast hall. "Humans," Thok sneered, drawing out the word as if it tasted bitter. "A species of primitives clinging to scraps of borrowed technology. You hide behind allies, cower in the shadows, and yet you dare to claim a seat in this council. Prove yourselves or step aside." The assembly, a kaleidoscope of alien lifeforms representing the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, sat silent. Earth's ambassador, a gray-haired woman named Marla Quinns, stood stiffly at the center podium. Her hands tightened into fists, but her expression remained carefully neutral. "General Thok," she said, her tone measured, "humanity has fought and bled in this galaxy, as much as any other." "Enough," Thok barked, cutting her off. His reptilian lips curled into a mockery of a smile. "I propose a challenge. Send your finest warrior to face me. Let us see if your species is worthy of recognition or destined for irrelevance." The silence in the chamber deepened, broken only by the faint hum of the Council's automated systems. Marla hesitated, her mind racing. Humanity was still recovering from its first forays into interstellar war, its technology decades behind the dominant powers. To send a soldier against Thok was to risk certain humiliation, or worse. The challenge was broadcast live across the galaxy, beamed into every corner of Earth. On the orbital defense station Haven, Captain Elias Vance stood in the mess hall, arms crossed, watching the broadcasts with narrowed eyes. Around him, the room was alive with murmurs of disbelief and outrage from his fellow officers. "That lizard's got some nerve," muttered Lieutenant Singh, shaking her head. "We can't let him get away with that." Elias said nothing, his gaze fixed on the screen. Thok's arrogance, the condescension dripping from his every word, ignited something deep within him. He clenched his jaw, remembering the charred remains of Colony Delta 7, the place he'd once called home, reduced to ash by an alien bombardment. His family gone. His friends vaporized. All because humans were seen as weak, expendable. "I'll do it," Elias said quietly, his voice cutting through the din like a blade. Singh turned to him, eyes wide. "What?" "I'll face him," Elias repeated, louder this time. The room fell silent. Every face turned toward him, a mixture of disbelief and admiration flickering in their eyes. Hours later, Elias stood before Earth's top brass in a sleek conference room aboard Haven. A holographic projection of General Thok's challenge hovered above the table, looping endlessly. "This is suicide," Admiral Connors said, his gravelly voice filled with frustration. "Thok isn't just any soldier, he's a Zilker warlord. Sending you would be handing him a propaganda victory. Then let him underestimate me," Elias replied, his tone steady. "We've spent decades adapting to challenges that should have destroyed us. This isn't just about me, it's about showing the galaxy what humanity is capable of." The Admiral sighed, rubbing his temples. "You realize the stakes, Vance? If you fail, it won't just be your life on the line. Humanity's reputation, our place in this galaxy, will be tarnished forever." Elias leaned forward, his eyes burning with quiet determination. "And if we do nothing? If we let Thok's words go unchallenged? We'll still be branded as cowards. I'd rather go down fighting than stand by and do nothing." A heavy silence followed. Finally, Marla Quinns, patched into the meeting via hologram, spoke. "He's right. Humanity's future depends on proving our worth. Captain Vance, you'll have our full support." Preparations began immediately. In a hidden research lab deep within Haven, Elias was introduced to the Helios combat suit. Sleek and angular, its black exterior shimmered faintly with blue energy veins coursing through its surface. "This suit is our ace in the hole," explained Dr. Ria Nakamura, the lead scientist. "It amplifies strength, speed, and reflexes by a factor of 5. It's equipped with adaptive shielding and an energy core that can handle extreme environmental conditions. Elias stepped forward, running a hand over the suit's surface. And the drawbacks? The core is experimental, Nakamura admitted. Prolonged use could destabilize the system, especially under heavy stress. But if anyone can make it work, it's you. I'll make it work, Elias said with quiet conviction. As the scientists worked to calibrate the suit, Elias took a moment to prepare himself mentally. Sitting alone in his quarters, he glanced at a worn photograph of his family, his mother, father, and younger sister, all smiling under the golden sun of Delta 7. His chest tightened, but he pushed the pain aside. This wasn't just about him. It was about ensuring that no other family would suffer the same loss. The final briefing came swiftly. In a large hangar, Elias stood at attention as the crew prepared the ship that would take him to Zarlith Prime. Marla Quinns addressed him via a hollow terminal. "Captain, you're carrying the weight of Earth on your shoulders," she said. "The galaxy is watching. Show them what it means to be human." Elias nodded, his expression calm but resolute. "I'll give them a reason to remember us." As he boarded the ship, his fellow soldiers lined the walkway, saluting him in solemn silence. The weight of their expectations pressed against him, but he welcomed it. Every step he took felt heavier, but it was a burden he was willing to bear. The ship's engines roared to life, and the hangar bay doors slid open to reveal the infinite expanse of space. As the craft hurtled toward Zarlith Prime, Elias sat in the cockpit, his hand resting on the edge of his helmet. The challenge ahead was daunting, but the fire in his heart burned brighter than ever. "You think we're weak, Thok?" he murmured to himself. "You have no idea what we're capable of." Far away, Zarlith Prime loomed on the horizon, a world of jagged crystalline landscapes and deadly acid storms. It was the perfect stage for the battle that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. Elias Vance wasn't afraid. He was ready. Zarlith Prime was a world of jagged beauty and imminent danger. Towering crystalline trees refracted light into sharp, kaleidoscopic patterns that danced across the ground, while rivers of acid carved glowing veins through the desolate terrain. The air was thick, acidic, and faintly luminescent, a reminder that life here was hostile to anything unprepared for its wrath. Elias Vance stepped out of the landing craft, his boots crunching on the brittle, glass-like ground. His Helios combat suit adjusted instantly, a faint blue glow rippling over its surface as it regulated the air and shielded him from the acidic drizzle falling from a dark, storm-choked sky. Ahead of him stood General Kavar Thok, a massive figure flanked by his honor guard of Zilker soldiers. Thok's crimson armor gleamed under the distorted light, and his reptilian lips curled into a toothy smirk as he surveyed the lone human who had dared to answer his challenge. "So," Thok called out, his voice booming across the expanse, "this is humanity's champion? I was expecting something more impressive." Elias didn't flinch. His helmet's visor reflected Thok's towering form, giving the general no hint of the calculating stare behind it. "You talk a lot for someone who's going to lose," Elias replied, his tone calm but razor-sharp. Thok's laughter rumbled like distant thunder. "Lose? You amuse me, human. Very well, let's see if you can survive my gauntlet." Thok gestured toward the crystalline forest behind him, a labyrinth of sharp, glowing structures and shifting shadows. Hidden within were traps, ambush points, and creatures that defied natural laws. It was not a battleground, it was a death trap. "You'll find me at the heart of the forest if you make it that far," Thok said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Try not to die too quickly. I enjoy a good hunt." Elias didn't respond. He tightened his grip on his pulse rifle and stepped forward, his focus sharpening like the edge of a blade. The Zilker honor guard parted to let him pass, their glowing eyes watching him with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. The forest enveloped him almost immediately, its crystalline trees arching overhead like the ribs of some vast, alien beast. The acidic rain hissed against the suit's shield, and the ground beneath his boots cracked and shifted with every step. Elias moved cautiously, his rifle sweeping the terrain as his helmet's AI scanned for threats. It didn't take long for the first ambush. A blur of motion flickered in the corner of his visor, and he dropped into a crouch just as a Zilker soldier lunged from behind a cluster of jagged crystals. The alien's claws sliced through the air where Elias's head had been a second earlier. Elias responded instantly, his reflexes enhanced by the suit. He rolled to the side, raising his rifle and firing a precise burst of plasma rounds. The soldier crumpled to the ground, smoke rising from its armor. "Nice try," Elias muttered, stepping over the body. The ambush was only the beginning. As he pushed deeper into the forest, more of Thok's soldiers emerged, their attacks coordinated and relentless. They used the terrain to their advantage, appearing and disappearing like ghosts among the crystalline spires. Elias adapted quickly, using his suit's advanced sensors to track their movements and anticipate their attacks. In one encounter, he disabled a soldier by triggering a small explosion in a nearby acid pool, the resulting spray melting through the alien's armor. In another, he scaled a crystalline tree to gain the high ground, picking off his attackers with precision shots. The suit wasn't perfect, though. During a particularly intense firefight, the shield flickered and nearly failed under a barrage of plasma fire. Elias ducked behind cover, his breath steady despite the warning alarms in his helmet. "System status," he murmured. "Energy reserves at 72%. The AI responded in a calm, female voice. "Recommend caution." "Noted." He emerged from cover, his movements swift and deliberate. He took down the last of his attackers with a well-placed shot, then paused to catch his breath. The suit's AI worked to stabilize the shield, but Elias knew he couldn't rely on it indefinitely. Hours passed, or at least it felt that way. The forest seemed alive, its crystalline structures shifting subtly as if responding to his presence. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional crackle of distant lightning or the hiss of acid rain. Elias pressed on, his determination unwavering. He encountered more traps, razor-sharp crystal shards that shot from the ground without warning, acidic geysers that erupted from hidden vents, but he navigated them with a mix of caution and ingenuity. At one point he stumbled upon a massive crystalline predator, its body a swirling mass of translucent shards that refracted light into blinding patterns. It lunged at him with terrifying speed, its razor-line maw snapping inches from his face. Elias fired his pulse rifle, but the shots bounced harmlessly off the creature's crystalline hide. Thinking quickly, he switched tactics, luring the predator toward a narrow canyon lined with unstable crystal formations. When it charged again, he detonated an explosive charge, bringing the entire canyon down on top of it. The creature's shriek echoed through the forest before falling silent. Elias stood at the edge of the rubble, his pulse racing. "One problem solved," he muttered, continuing forward. Finally, he reached the heart of the forest, a vast clearing dominated by a towering crystalline structure that pulsed with an eerie, internal light. General Thok stood at the center, his crimson armor glowing faintly under the alien radiance. "You've made it farther than I expected," Thok said, his tone almost amused. "But this is where your journey ends." Elias stepped forward, his rifle steady in his hands. "You talk a lot for someone who's about to lose." Thok roared with laughter, a deep, guttural sound that echoed across the clearing. "Brave words, human. Let's see if your actions match them." The general charged, his massive frame moving with surprising speed. Elias fired a burst of plasma rounds, but Thok deflected them with a shield of energy that rippled around his body. The impact sent Elias skidding backward, his suit's shield flaring under the strain. Thok closed the distance quickly, swinging a massive, bladed weapon with brutal force. Elias ducked and rolled, his movements fluid and precise. He fired again, this time aiming for Thok's legs, but the general was relentless, shrugging off the attacks like they were nothing. Elias knew he couldn't rely on brute force alone. He analyzed Thok's movements, looking for patterns, weaknesses. As the general lunged again, Elias triggered a small explosive charge at his feet, sending shards of crystal flying into Thok's exposed joints. The alien roared in pain but didn't falter. "Clever," Thok growled. "But not enough." The battle raged on, both combatants pushing themselves to the limit. Elias's suit warned him of dwindling energy reserves, but he refused to give in. You think we're weak? Elias said, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. You have no idea what we're capable of. Thok snarled and lunged again, but this time, Elias was ready. Using the last of his suit's energy reserves, he activated a plasma burst that destabilized the ground beneath Thok, sending the alien crashing into a pool of acid below. Thok's roar echoed through the clearing as he struggled to climb out, his armor sizzling and smoking. Elias stood at the edge, his rifle trained on the general. Concede, Elias said coldly. Thok glared up at him, his pride warring with the reality of his defeat. Finally, he growled, You've won this round, human. Elias lowered his rifle, his expression unreadable. Good. Then let's make sure everyone knows it. The acidic rain eased to a faint drizzle, and the twisted crystalline forest stood silent. Smoke rose from the pool of acid where General Thok struggled, his crimson armor battered and corroded. He dragged himself to the edge, his claws scraping against the jagged ground as he hauled his hulking form free. The once mighty warlord looked up at Elias Vance, a mix of fury and begrudging respect burning in his eyes. You fight like no human I've ever seen, Thok growled, his voice ragged. This was supposed to be your death, not a display of your defiance. Elias stood firm, his pulse rifle lowered but ready. His suit's energy reserves were critically low, and the strain of the battle had left him physically and mentally drained. Still, his resolve was unshaken. You underestimated us, Thok. That was your first mistake. The alien general rose to his full height, towering over Elias despite his injuries. Acid still dripped from his armor, hissing softly as it hit the ground. You've proven your point, human. But don't think this means I'll kneel to your kind. The Zilker do not submit. Elias tilted his head slightly, his tone measured but firm. This isn't about submission. It's about respect. You called us cowards. You wanted a fight, and I gave you one. Now, the galaxy will see us for what we truly are, survivors. Thok's lip curled into a snarl, but he didn't argue. The truth of Elias's words hung heavily in the air. Around them, the crystalline clearing glowed faintly, as if bearing witness to the moment. The battle's conclusion was broadcast live across the galaxy. On Earth, in orbiting colonies, and even among distant allies, humanity watched with bated breath. The sight of Elias standing tall against the battered Zilker general ignited a wave of pride and hope. For the first time, humanity wasn't seen as weak or inferior. They were contenders in a galaxy that had long dismissed them. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Marla Quinn sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The chamber buzzed with murmurs from the gathered representatives, their eyes fixed on the hollow feed. When the transmission ended, she stood, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Members of the Council, she began, her tone calm but commanding. You've seen the truth today. Humanity may be young compared to your ancient civilizations, but we are not to be dismissed. We've earned our place in this council, not through words but through action. One of the representatives, a blue-skinned diplomat from the Quarren Alliance, inclined their head. Your champion fought with honor. Perhaps we underestimated your species. Perhaps you did, Marla replied, a faint smile playing on her lips. But now you know better. Back on Zarlith Prime, Elias stood in the center of the clearing as a Zilker transport descended from the sky. Its engines roared, kicking up dust and fragments of crystal. Thok stepped forward, his movements slower and more deliberate than before. He turned to Elias, his gaze unreadable. This isn't over, human, Thok said. You've won today, but the galaxy is vast, and its battles are many. Elias met his gaze without flinching. We'll be ready. Thok boarded the transport, and within moments, it lifted off, disappearing into the storm-choked sky. The clearing fell silent once more, leaving Elias alone with his thoughts. He took a deep breath, his body aching but his spirit unbroken. Captain Vance? A voice crackled through his helmet's comm system. It was Marla. The Council is abuzz with what you've accomplished. You've done more than win a duel, you've changed the perception of our entire species. Elias allowed himself a small smile. Just doing my job, ma'am, A shuttle from Haven arrived shortly after, its sleek design cutting through the dark clouds. As Elias boarded, the crew inside greeted him with applause and cheers. He waved them off with a weary grin. "Save it for the victory celebration. Right now, I just need a hot meal and a stronger shield generator." The shuttle lifted off, carrying him away from the hostile world. Through the window, Elias watched as Zarlith Prime shrank into the distance, its jagged landscape fading into the void of space. The battle was over, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. Days later, Elias stood in the main auditorium of Haven, the room packed with soldiers, scientists, and diplomats. A massive holographic display showed scenes from the duel, interspersed with images of Earth and its colonies. Marla Quinn stood at the podium, addressing the crowd. "Today, we celebrate not just a victory, but a turning point," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Captain Elias Vance showed the galaxy what it means to be human, our resilience, our ingenuity, and our unyielding spirit. Let this be a reminder to us all that our greatest strength lies not in our technology or our numbers, but in our determination to survive and thrive." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Elias, standing at the edge of the stage, felt a pang of discomfort at being the center of attention. He preferred the quiet efficiency of the battlefield to the pomp and circumstance of ceremonies. But as he looked out at the faces of his comrades, he realized that this moment wasn't about him, it was about all of them. After the ceremony, Elias found himself in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The vast expanse of the galaxy stretched before him, filled with infinite possibilities and challenges. He knew that humanity's journey was far from over. There would be more battles, more sacrifices, and more moments that tested their resolve. Singh approached him, a glass of something amber and potent in her hand. "So, how does it feel to be a hero?" she asked, smirking. Elias chuckled softly. "Exhausting." She handed him the glass. "You earned it. Drink up." He took a sip, savoring the burn as it slid down his throat. For a moment, he allowed himself to relax, to let the weight of the past few days lift from his shoulders. But deep down, he knew he couldn't rest for long. The stars called to him, their light a reminder of the challenges yet to come. Humanity had taken its first step toward carving out its place in the galaxy, but the road ahead was long and uncertain. As he raised his glass in a silent toast to the unknown, Elias Vance made a silent promise to himself and to his species: no matter what lay ahead, humanity would face it together.